Peaches! Welcome to our 28th episode. I'm Erica.
I'm Joyce, and today we have special guest, your everyday Asian, here today with us. Welcome, Louise and Ailin.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So happy to have you guys, and thank you for taking the time to be on our podcast.
Yeah, our official
It'll be a pleasure.
Zoom co-host podcast with people that we meet for the first time.
And someone that's abroad, right?
Yeah,
someone that is like from Australia.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Very excited to be here.
Thank you.
So we were so excited when you guys reached out because, first collab for us and also, abroad as well. So we were like, oh, this will be so fun to do.
So exciting.
We're so honored.
We're honored.
So do you want to talk a little bit about you guys and about why you guys started your podcast?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Ailin from Your Everyday Asian. And I was born in China and then migrated to Australia when I was 4 years old and grew up from then on in Australia. And I work full time as a physiotherapist, currently living in Brisbane. And Louise and I just were keen to start this podcast because we wanted to increase some Asian representation, especially around our Brisbane community and also reaching the wider Australian community as well. Quite inspired by podcasts from like our American friends or internationally as well. So just general chit chats and talking about life really.
That's nice.
Hey, everyone. I am Louise from Your Everyday Asian. I'm Ailin's other half. And I'm also located in Brisbane as well. And I am born and bred in Australia. My parents are from China, from the Canton province, so we speak Cantonese at home. I lived in Australia all my life, and it's been an interesting 25-year journey so far. But it's really great, like Ailin said, to kind of be able to share our thoughts publicly and have a great reason to just like chat to Ailin, and we just talk about everything and anything, and we eat random food together, and it's great to be on this podcast journey and with you guys too.
Yeah, I think what I really wanted to know and curious about you guys is like, what made you like, because I know there's like talks that, oh, maybe you guys should do something together. What was like the push to be like, okay, let's just do it? Like, what was that moment where you guys had that?
Yeah. Oh, good question. I don't know if we had a moment, Louise. Or maybe What do you think?
Well, I feel like, so I think initially Ailin kind of had this idea, and she's always been like a way bigger podcaster listener than I was. I kind of like listened to some podcasts here and there, but she's always like trying to recommend me like, different episodes, and she's watched the latest ABG, and she's like, you've got to listen to this. And there's always kind of been like that interest in podcasts. And then like once I moved to Brisbane, and then we were kind of located closer, it was kind of like more on the cards, and we're like, we've got to do something a bit extra on the side to our work. And we were like, well, this is so natural to us, like we always talk, so like let's actually give this a go. And we started Googling all around it, and I think
I was keen to like try something a bit different other than just doing like a full-time job, but also thinking about what our strengths are and what can we like easily make together without going super wrong. I thought this was a good idea, and just to try it out. So it's purely like at the moment just having fun and talking about things that we want to talk about. But it's awesome that we can reach out like internationally with you guys as well.
The internet is great.
I agree. I mean, I guess we can all agree that like podcasting is such a low budget yet really fun platform for us to have a bit of our own voice, but at the same time really to connect with people all around the globe. Honestly, there's like no border. I think like this time we can co-host, next time we can even invite other podcasters to co-host together. I mean, it would be really fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Podcast party.
Yeah, exactly.
I think also like I'm actually really excited about this particular podcast with you guys is because we live like so many miles away, so many thousand miles away. We have something in common, and is that we're all raised, you know, Asian, like in an Asian household, and we're all Asians, right? And I think that was something that we really wanted to bring out in our podcast as well, rather than just like we have different types of like topics. Like we have like lifestyle, fashion, and like love or relationships and friendship. But today, I think something that the four of us have something that's really clicked is this kind of like Asian culture, right? That we have inherited when we were born, and maybe sharing something that how you guys grew up can give our listeners insights as well, like from Hong Kong, and it's just a really meaningful conversation, I think, overall.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very excited to talk about today's topics.
Yes. Well, it's also one of the reasons because we're all, you know, Asians. That's why I feel like this topic is so relevant. Because well, we're all also working as well. So it's got me thinking how like, you know, Asian household and like career expectation, like are there any correlation? How has that like, you know, maybe there's some kind of like our own family values or the societal values that has shaped you or led you to think and do what you are currently doing. So stuff like that is just I always think it's interesting to go back to your roots and just think how maybe it might have some influence on you as a person. So that's why today let's talk about, you know, parental or family
or just personal growth and being, right? So I guess the first question I have for you guys is either one of you guys can go first. What does success mean to you now?
Yeah, this is an interesting question to think about. I guess for me, success, first of all, I think is setting like goals and then feeling accomplished that I can, in whatever way I can, to like can achieve them. So for example, even if they're short-term goals or small goals and then leading up to bigger goals, I feel like, or even if I don't get to the bigger goal, like if I can take some steps towards what I want to achieve, I feel like for myself, I feel successful in a way, because then you look back and you're like, oh, I've come so far. But also on the other hand, just overall feeling content with how I'm going with life, I think for me is success already, because life is, you know, throws all types of things at you. So if you can be comfortable and happy and content with how you're going and where you're going, then I think for me that's success in itself. What about you, Louise?
Yeah, I was just gonna like agree wholeheartedly with like all of that. I think having goals is so important, and it's sort of like you can have whatever goals, right, that you're working towards, as long as I feel like it is something that is meaningful to you and like kind of gives you that your purpose in life, and it makes you feel like, you know, every day is worth living. Then I feel like, you know, as you're even like when you're on your journey to achieving those goals, you're already succeeding. And then, you know, there's, I guess, like, there are like, I guess, ideals and like pressures around like what is potentially like what kind of goals you should have. But yeah, like if you, I don't know, you know within yourself that this is like your dream or like something you really want to try out, then I think it's success already that you head towards that and just give it a go.
I mean, I'm glad to hear that, you know, you guys are, first of all, your values are pretty aligned, and it's a very healthy way of thinking about it. But well, I just have to ask, right? Since you guys both grow up in Asian households, has there, I mean, despite your own way of thinking about how success might be like, how an ideal life might be like, has there been certain thoughts or values that your families have delivered to you before, like because I have heard before from my friends who might have rather traditional parents. They'd be like, oh, you know what, for a woman, the most ideal life for them is to, you know, get a job, of course, and have a baby. First get married, have a baby, have a baby.
Can't have a baby before. That's not successful.
Yeah, have a baby without a marriage. No, that's a huge no.
No.
Yeah, at the age of 30, if you have all of these, then damn, you're living that ideal life that everyone would dream of. Have you guys ever been told that?
Yeah, like literally the same thing. And I was literally thinking that as well. Like that big number, like 30 is like a big number. Like if you've achieved all that stuff by 30, you are like set.
Yeah.
But a lot easier said than done. I think like I think Ailin and I, we kind of both come from like families that are like more traditional. Like even though we are in Australia, both our like families kind of embody more like the same kind of traditional values as like say our grandparents did, like when they were in China and stuff. And yeah, I think like when they think of success, or at least what we've kind of been taught, is like, you know, you excel academically, you do well at school, better make sure you go to uni to get that good job.
You must.
Yeah, you must. And then, yeah, you get that stable, well-paying job. Especially if you are female, like ideally married and you have kids by 30.
Even for me, like I was talking to my mum because she's starting to push me already.
Wow.
Although I'm
already
25. Yeah, already. Yeah, already.
Are you guys
and
single or
we're
right now?
We're both in relationships.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, like, I'm like, oh, mum, maybe I'll like marriage by 30, you know, because that's usually like everyone's kind of around that age now to get married, like at least.
Right.
And she's like, 30? That's so old. Like, she's like, no, 27. 27 is the
now
cutoff.
You guys are negotiating, right?
I'm like,
that's it.
How can you set a date for that?
Reach me in the middle, 27. Maybe and a half, 27 and a half.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I can see how our parents have those kind of mindsets. And but what I'm curious is that how do you think they're kind of like, because now that we're older, right, how, you know, they have these expectations, how do you kind of take that and like their mindset on success and their expectations on you, how do you kind of take that and kind of own up and be like, oh, okay, like I understand that. How do you bring it to yourself? Like, is there some parts where you're like, oh, this is good, then I'll take it, or maybe this is not so much who I am as a person, then maybe I'll like shift it and like do something with it? Like, just curious, like what do you guys think on that?
And create your own version of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think as like children of Asian households, we kind of all go through this kind of process, and that maybe people have different methods of going about it. But I think when I was younger, I maybe more immature, so I wouldn't be able to understand my parents as much. But now, like growing up and living away from home, I can, you know, my mindset, has shifted a little bit. And like, you know, Louise and I talked about like our parents, like they migrated from China overseas when they were quite young, like younger than us, really, and set up their own lives, and obviously went through quite a lot of hardships through migration, but also in childhood as well, like in Asia.
Sure.
And then like working so hard to give us opportunities now. So I think as kids, we should be quite grateful for what they've done. And like and through that, I can understand like they would want us to succeed more than them. So therefore that there's that pressure inherently for us to do well. And maybe they just have their own dreams of like a success is a good job, like a doctor or a lawyer. And then get the money, get the husband, have the kid, and then you're good.
Buy a house here, buy a house here. Don't rent. Rent is like
That's true. That's true.
paying off other people's mortgage. That's what they say all the time.
Yeah. It's so hard nowadays though. So now I can really understand, like, because of what they've gone through, why they would have those expectations, I guess, on their children. But also in another way, some of their ideals, for example, like the marriage stuff, like setting a time frame, like that is a bit unrealistic, because you want to make sure you're with the right person and you're ready, like, in your life as well. So how to navigate that, I guess it's just trying to maintain open communication with the parents, but also going about in a way that you're not disrespecting their perspective, because otherwise I know my parents can get easily angry. So you need to kind of know how to communicate your ideas with them without causing them to become frustrated. What about you, Louise?
I think, like, as we get older, you can really appreciate more, I guess, like, kind of the sacrifices that our parents went through, you know, to try and give us that better life by coming to Australia. And they did go through a lot of hardships, and, like, I get told so many stories about, you know, like, when they were young, they, like, didn't have this and they didn't get to eat this, and, like, I remember one story. So my mum always tells me that, like, when she was young, they were so poor that, like, for her birthday, or, like, her sibling's birthday, like, they would get one whole egg, like, and that was their birthday present. And she would, like, try to hide it so she could just eat this egg by herself. But, like, other times that if you were to eat an egg, it was like, I don't know, you were, like, so rich, or, like, they would have to, like, cut it in half to, like, share with their siblings because they didn't have that kind of money. So obviously it's like, can really understand, you know, that they don't want us to go through that, obviously. And I do feel very privileged, like, we don't go through that. Like, we are very lucky to have what we have. But it's really interesting, I guess, because we are, like, first generation Asian Australians. We kind of have, like, you know, we have that Asian culture, but we've also experienced and grown up with the Western culture as well. And obviously that influences us because we have gone to school with Westerners. We, like, eat their food. We basically, like, are, like, they call us they call us ABCs for a reason, right? And so I think that, to me, has really, like, especially these last few years, it's kind of, like, showing me, you know, there's some really great parts of, like, our Asian culture, and, like, you're right, like, we want to hold on to that, but then you kind of see these other, like, great parts about, like, say, other cultures, and say, like, the Western culture that we've also grown up with, things like maybe they value, like, freedom more, and being more creative, or, like, trying to, like, their idea of success is very different to what we have grown up with and been taught. And so I guess it's, like, us trying to mesh those two cultures together to, like, create this new, like, personal definition of, like, success as an Asian Australian, which is quite different, and it's kind of hard too.
Because there's no book or anything, right? You're just kind of, like, figuring out as you go. But also, like, a pro to that is, like, you get kind of best of both worlds, right? You get a little bit of your Asian inherited, and then you get to adopt, like, their Western side and kind of grow with both of them and be like, okay, this is how am I gonna, like, utilize this, you know, and be the best version
you're right,
or for my, you know, kids in the future, you know.
That's right. And like, we can pick and choose, like, the best parts of, like, each culture, and then use that to our benefit.
I think also for me, like, just to add on, was, like, I didn't appreciate a lot of things that I grew up with when I was in Hong Kong and, like, my parents until, like, I studied abroad and then I came back. That gave me a lot of perspective. So I think, like, that studying abroad experience that really made me appreciate more And just now, of course, like as I grow older, like the maturity also really, really helps. Like I'm more grounded as a person. I reflect more. So I know how to like why my parents are doing the things that they're doing. Like it's really like I think we had this conversations a couple episodes ago. It was like it's our parents' first time being parents as well.
Oh yeah.
Right. You kind of,
Yeah.
and I really like that when you said that. You know, they didn't had any like prior experience or they didn't went to college for that, right?
That's
so
true.
True.
So
And I mean, in a way, there is still a reason why traditional values are traditions, right? Like they live on and on for a couple of generations for a reason. And as much as we try to diverge from it, like there's still some part of
there's some values to that.
Yeah. But so I guess that's also why you guys try to besides your full-time job, you guys kind of want to do something of your own to maybe start a side hustle as well. Yeah, I just think that right now, because even for myself, back then, despite all the stuff that I imagine myself doing, I'm kind of just really going along with my family's expectation, pursuing the right career path to become a lawyer because stable money, a stable income, and get a boyfriend and everything. But
as you go older,
as I grow older, I just kind of realize that that's not really what I want right now. So to create my own version of life.
Of course, like, not disrespecting them, but just kind of fulfilling your own needs and your own goals, that's suitable for yourself.
That's true. So for you guys, have you ever had any, I mean, I heard you guys say that, you guys went to school, and so there might be some certain occasions where you realize that maybe your values or maybe your expectation for yourself aren't exactly aligned with your parents. So have there ever been any maybe not exactly regrets, but maybe doubts about how you think you want to approach things, or is there really anything that you think you could have done differently in terms of your choices in life so far till the age of 25? I know we still have a very long way to go, but just
it's a deep question.
Question. Time for some reflection, everyone.
Everyone's like, time to get grounded. Let's do some therapy. No, it's okay. Really good question. I guess in terms of regrets, I don't think personally at the moment I would say I have any regrets. In terms of career path, mine was quite interesting. Like similarly, like after graduating year 12, I was aiming to get into medicine at first because I was like, doctor, stable job, good pay, like, respect from the family.
So much respect.
But I also did enjoy health in general. Like I felt like that was an area that I probably wanted to work in anyway. Although though getting into medicine in Australia is really, really competitive. And so I actually didn't get in. So I was like, okay, so what do I do now? And physiotherapy is usually the second choice, like people fall back on because of like the second highest marks in terms of like health sometimes. And then that was my second choice. And I know a bit about physios before going in. I just saw them at the hospital. So I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. So I just went for it. But although going in, I was like, I actually really don't know what physios do. And so I went in, and at first I did have doubts because I was like, this is very different from medicine, which is what I was aiming for. And I was like, maybe this isn't the right career path for me. Like maybe I should have listened to my parents and try again for med or try like different stable careers. But then the more I learned, and like we actually go on clinical placement where you go see patients and in the hospitals and things, like you experience being a physio before graduating. I realized like I really enjoy this profession, and I realized that interacting with patients, I do have actually more opportunity than doctors because I have more time with them. So I'm able to build more connections. So in a way, I realized that I don't really want to be a doctor by falling into physio. And now I'm really happy where I am. So yeah, in a way, almost like found my own path without meaning to, which is very lucky. Yeah. So, and in terms of like other doubts, I guess because Australia is quite big, and obviously we're in Brisbane right now, but growing up in Canberra, such a small city, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay there long term. But also like family is obviously there. But I thought like when I'm young, why not see if I can travel a little bit and experience other cities? So I did make the decision to move to Brisbane for uni and then for work. And I did doubt throughout because I'm like, oh, obviously I miss my family and, you know, they want me to be close. But like you guys have said, growing as a person and figuring out what you want, it's actually sometimes you need to take that risk. Maybe in other cities. Yeah. And other experiences to then figure out what you want. So who knows, in the future I might move back, I might not. I might get my parents up. But yeah, I'm glad like went through the doubts to get to a better place or a clearer picture of what I want. Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I think like I had like some of those similar doubts too. Not that I didn't want to become a doctor, just not smart enough. But so doing a bit of reflection, I feel like I also try not to have any regrets, but I think it's actually like I'm very grateful that our parents have actually kind of at least or created this pathway for us where we have, I know, kind of the ability to try out some different things and potentially make mistakes and have like we have that safety net to fall back on because like some people aren't, you know, as fortunate. You know, they literally have to live paycheck to paycheck. They work one job and that's how they make ends meet. But then like for us, like my parents were pretty strict too, but they still kind of were like, oh, well, make sure, you know, you still choose something like a job that you are happy with. And so they did let me try, you know, and test myself out and choose my own destiny. And then like, obviously we all make mistakes, but then they kind of, you know, that they're still there and they will support you. Like, even though, yeah, you do something wrong and then they're totally like, oh, you should have listened to us. But at least in the end, they still, you know, they're like literally backing you, like no matter what you do, which is like, I feel very, very grateful for. In terms of like, say, I guess things that maybe could be done differently, I guess I think of like, you know, maybe in the future when I have children, like what would I do? Like probably I will do a lot of the things that my parents do. But one thing that does come to mind that I feel like, you know, maybe I would try to do differently because I have been like I've grown up here is like there's this huge push for like doing well academically, and you know, you even have like this Asian 5 that you're supposed to do at school, you know, like top English, top maths,
double
physics,
maths,
chemistry, what was it? Like economics or something like that. Yeah. No English. Was there no English?
Did not work.
So it means that you have to get to the top, like you have to be the top of your class because you're Asian in these 5 subjects?
Well, you should do well, but it's like, you know, the true Asians, they will do like those 5 subjects.
You have to be in the 5 subjects.
I'm sorry, I'm not being racist. I'm just saying the very stereotypical of, you know, people.
So stereotypical, right? Yeah, but it's like, I guess some stereotypes are kind of based in truth, and at least for like that was the Asian 5 when we were at like school. So
and we both did not do the Asian 5.
We did not do those.
What did you guys do instead?
It was some parts were the same, like maths. like I did chemistry. I didn't do physics.
Mm.
And then we both did human biology,
Yeah.
English, and then
That's so rebellious.
Look how we turned out.
Wild.
oh, I did Chinese as well. I did Chinese
That's all right.
just to get the good marks.
This is out of the question that we were going to ask, but have you ever thought of working outside of Australia or move like across it, like anywhere elsewhere from Australia? Like, did that ever like cross your mind?
Yeah.
So for me, previously, I'd never really thought too much into it, maybe because I was just starting off in my career and just trying to like get a job and like do well. But now like thinking about the future, again, similar to like the being young thing before you settle down, I'm like, oh, that would be nice to try and like, you know, go overseas and experience a different country for a few years maybe before like coming back to Australia and settling down. But yeah, for me, it's not like a super big dream, but if there was an opportunity, I wouldn't mind taking it.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's the same with me. Yeah, I think I always wanted to kind of settle in Australia and just work in Australia. But yeah, like when you have like friends going overseas and they're telling you like all these great things, you kind of just get like a little bit of, I don't know, FOMO. So you want to go as well. So for me, if I was to go anywhere, I considered potentially like the UK, which is very common for healthcare professionals to go to the UK. Same for like physios as well. And then like I was like, oh, maybe I could go to Hong Kong as well. Like serious. And I also really liked Singapore and Canada, but yeah, they're kind of the first two were like the UK and Hong Kong. And like, believe it or not, when I told my parents that, they were like, oh, well, UK is, you know, quite far away, but like Hong Kong, you know, at least you can speak the language. And I'm like, guys,
but you
like,
can speak the language.
UK is like English.
UK is English.
Like I definitely speak better English than like Chinese. But they were like, yeah, I guess actually that kind of goes back to like, because they're more like familiar with Hong Kong and like China and stuff. So that's why they're more open to the idea. And that I think can kind of branch into like, you know, maybe there's like traditionally they're more familiar with certain types of jobs that are considered prestigious and like well respected and they pay well. And I guess, and being, you know, of a different generation too, they kind of, I guess they have this mindset, whereas, you know, our generation, it's like continually evolving and we've got like a huge influence from technology and social media now, which is something that they're totally unfamiliar with. So of course they might not be as open to like these alternative like career paths. Yeah.
Well, just FYI, was from like what I heard. I have a friend who works as I think she used to work as a nurse in Australia. She came back to Hong Kong, and she told me that working in Australia, she took care of 4 patients at the same time, but in Hong Kong it's double.
Yeah.
Wow.
I heard that too.
Talk your parents out of Hong Kong if you don't want to, or come, you know, experience the life of us. Yeah.
Again, maybe Australia is still very relaxed in terms of healthcare too.
Yeah.
although the nurses complain anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard that as well. I have friends who work in Singapore hospitals and they also say it's like quite intense. And that makes sense because more fast paced, more people. Just need to be efficient if you need to get through so much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess lastly, to kind of sum up this podcast in general, what are some, I guess, let's do one takeaway from each of you guys that you think our listeners could take away. I guess it's a very more generalized takeaway, like how would you give our 20-something-year-old, I would say most of them are 20-something-year-olds,
yeah.
listeners, advice of kind of how to deal with like, I guess, Asian households and
Meeting
also
your family's
expectations, and then also like dealing with like all these like kind of expectations of success, just growing up in general. This is very generalizing, but what is the one takeaway that you want to share that might be helpful?
I think like I actually really liked a point that you brought up like a while ago, Ailin, where you talked about having that open communication with your parents. And I think that is really important. And so I would say, like, have, your dreams and your goals, and your parents will have that for you as well. But if you establish that line of trust and you kind of are able to openly communicate with them in a respectful manner, then you don't actually know, like, they might be more receptive to your goals than you think. And like they are on your side. So even though they're sometimes kind of strict and mean, you just like, being able to talk openly with them, I think is the way to get the ball rolling, and help them to see that, these goals that you have are achievable, and you are happy doing what you're doing. What about you, Ailin?
Yeah, I was practically going to say the same thing. That's the first thing if we are talking about navigating parental expectations. But I guess before you go talk to your parents, it's good to like kind of do your own research and have your own plan already, because sometimes if you go in with no plan, they're not gonna be happy at
True.
all. So maybe just say like, I really thought about this. This means a lot to me. This is how I'm gonna go about it. If it doesn't work, this is what I'm going to do. Like, it's almost like a presentation. But also, emphasizing that, like, if you do find something that you're passionate about or a change that you want to pursue, like really emphasizing, like, this is what will bring me meaning. And I think in the end, parents, they do just want us to be happy. So although at first they might put up a fight, but eventually they will understand. Yeah. Because for me, like initially when I wanted to move back to Brisbane for work, because I went down for a year to work in Canberra, and then I wanted to leave again, and they were not like too happy at first because they're like, "Oh, you just came back." But yeah, I like tried repetitively to communicate with them, and like, this is what I want. Like, this doesn't mean I'm permanently there, but for now, this will bring me happiness. So
that's good. Good to hear.
So thank you, Ailin and Louise, for taking the time to come on our podcast. It's been really fun. And do you want to give a quick shout out to our Hyper Peaches listeners and where they can possibly find you guys?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Hyper Peaches, for having us. It's been a pleasure chatting, and hopefully we can have you guys on our podcast in the future again. But yeah, for everyone listening, if you're keen to follow us on Instagram, we're youreverydayasian.podcast. And on Facebook, we're just Your Everyday Asian. And you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Or you can email us on yeapodcast@gmail.com.
So thank you guys for listening, and we hope your day is as peachy as this episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Like and rate this podcast on Spotify and iTunes.
Comment or DM us on any of our social media platforms as well. Talk to you in the next one.
Bye.